Welcome to our deep dive. Um, Today we're tackling one of the most, I'd say one of the most profound and perplexing books of all time,
Definitely.
the book of Job.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to explore the entire book looking at its themes of suffering and justice and God's role and well, everything. Get ready. It's powerful stuff.
You can say that again. The book of Job really digs into the human experience, like pain, loss, and searching for meaning when things feel chaotic and unfair.
Right from the start, we're introduced to Job. And man, the text goes all out emphasizing his righteousness. Like he's got wealth, family, and deep devotion to God. It's like the ultimate picture of piety, a life that seems totally blessed. Why do you think that is? Why is the text so insistent on showing us Job's virtue?
Well, I think it's setting us up, for the massive downfall that's coming. By showing Job's perfect character, like it says in Job 1.1, blameless and upright one who feared God and turned away from evil, it makes us question that old idea that suffering is always a punishment for sin.
Makes sense. Then things get really interesting. We're suddenly in heaven with Satan challenging God. He's saying Job's goodness is just because of his easy life.
Yeah, it's like a bet between God and Satan. Satan's convinced if Job loses everything, his faith will disappear. And God actually gives Satan permission to test Job.
Wow, hold on. In Job 1.12, right, God lets Satan test Job, but says he can't kill him.
Exactly. That's important.
That brings up the whole question of free will versus God's control. How much power does God really have? And how much can Satan do?
It questions. Yeah. And the book doesn't give easy answers. The book of Job really makes us wrestle with how divine power and human choices work together in a world full of suffering and evil.
So Satan wastes no time, and Job's life is completely destroyed. He loses his animals, his servants, even his children. The text doesn't hold back on the detail.
It's brutal. In Job 2.7, it says he was afflicted with painful sores from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. This isn't some theoretical suffering. It's real pain and loss.
And then Job's friends show up, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. You'd think they'd be there to comfort him, but instead they start accusing him.
Yeah, their reaction is typical for the time. There was this strong belief in divine retribution, like they were convinced Job must have sinned somehow to deserve this.
So they believed that God rewards good and punishes bad. They needed that simple system to make sense of the world.
Exactly. And it shows how we crave explanations, especially when faced with suffering that seems totally random.
And so the debate begins, Job versus his friends, and it goes on for chapters.
It's fascinating how each friend uses different arguments and imagery, even though they all believe in this idea of divine retribution. It shows their personalities and how they understand God.
It's like an ancient debate tournament with poetry and deep theological questions all mixed in.
And Job passionately defends his innocence, using clever wordplay and poetic skill. He's angry and grieving and even questions God directly, like in Job 6.2-7, where he talks about how heavy his suffering is and wishes it could be weighed to prove how much he's going through.
You really feel his struggle with faith and how unfair everything seems. He even talks about wanting to die, wishing for peace and non-existence, like in Job 3.11-19.
It's unsettling, but also so human. He's not passively accepting this. He's fighting to understand what's happening and why God is silent.
Then a new character arrives, Elihu, a younger guy with a different perspective.
He disagrees with the older friends, saying we can't understand God's justice. He thinks suffering can be like divine discipline, like in Job 36.8-12, where he says God uses pain to lead people to repentance and righteousness.
So he's adding another layer to the debate. He's saying good deeds don't always equal rewards, and bad deeds don't always equal punishment. But there's still a purpose to suffering, even when we don't get it.
Right. He's highlighting how limited our human understanding is when it comes to the divine.
And that sets the stage for the most dramatic moment in the book.
When God himself speaks to Job.
And not just speaks. He appears out of a whirlwind.
That's an entrance.
Right. It's this powerful image of God's majesty and mystery. The whirlwind represents this force beyond our control, something that can turn our lives upside down in an instant.
It's like a physical representation of the chaos Job's been dealing with.
And then God's speeches are filled with incredible imagery and challenging questions. He talks about creation, asking Job to explain the earth and the stars and the animals, like in Job 38.4-7. He asks, "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me, if you know so much."
It's God reminding us that we can't possibly understand everything.
Yeah. Like God saying, look at the universe. Do you really think you can grasp my entire plan?
That's the point. God isn't giving Job or us simple answers. He's challenging our ideas about justice and how God works.
So how does Job react to this encounter with God? What does he say after God speaks from the whirlwind?
Job is humbled. He realizes how small his human perspective is compared to God's wisdom. In Job 42.5-6, he says, I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes.
It's a powerful moment of surrender. He's admitting he doesn't understand and choosing to trust God even without all the answers.
That's what faith is. It's not about knowing everything. It's about trusting even when things are confusing.
And what's interesting is that Job never gets a specific explanation for his suffering. God never says, here's why I let all that happen.
That's what makes the book so challenging and so relevant. It doesn't offer a neat ending or a simple moral. It leaves us with those same questions that people have been asking forever. Why do bad things happen to good people? What is God's justice really like? How do we find meaning when we suffer?
It's like the book is telling us, these are the big questions. We wrestle with them our whole lives. Don't expect easy answers. Keep searching for truth.
But even without a clear explanation, the story doesn't end with despair. Job gets everything back. He has a new family and twice as much wealth.
But it's not like everything goes back to how it was before Job has changed.
He's gone through this refining fire and come out stronger. He understands God better, appreciates life more, and is more humble.
The book of Job isn't just about suffering. It's about resilience, about how we can endure hardship, question our beliefs, and come out of trials with a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest times, there's still hope.
There's still room for growth, and there's still God, even though his ways can be mysterious.
He's still good. And as we continue this deep dive, we'll see how this ancient text connects to our lives today.
How its themes of suffering, justice, and faith are relevant to the challenges we all face.
The book of Job is full of wisdom. The language is beautiful and powerful. It draws you into Job's world and makes you feel his struggles.
I love the back and forth dialogue between Job and his friends. It's like each person is building on what the others said, creating this complex web of ideas and perspectives.
It's like a symphony of voices all trying to understand faith and suffering.
And at the center of it all is this question: what is real faith? Is this just blind obedience, accepting everything that happens no matter what? Or is it something deeper, something that allows for doubt, for asking hard questions, for wrestling with those big existential problems?
The book of Job challenges a simple view of faith. It suggests that real faith means engaging with the tough questions, confronting the mysteries, and even questioning God.
It's not passive, it's an active struggle. Even in his pain, Job never stops searching for truth. He keeps asking questions even when they lead him to dark and difficult places.
And that's why the book is so relevant today. We live in a world with a lot of suffering. We're always looking for answers, for meaning, for some hope in the darkness.
The book of Job doesn't shy away from the reality of pain. It doesn't give easy solutions, but it shows the strength of the human spirit and the power of faith, even when that faith is tested to its limits.
It reminds us that faith isn't about having all the answers. It's about trusting in something bigger than ourselves, even when we don't understand. It's about holding on to hope, even when things seem hopeless.
And it's about being brave enough to ask hard questions, to challenge what we think about God, about justice, about good and evil. Job never gives up on seeking truth, and through that he finds a deeper, more real faith.
The book of Job doesn't wrap everything up perfectly. It leaves us with unanswered questions and loose ends, and that's okay. It encourages us to keep thinking about these things long after we've finished reading.
This deep dive into the book of Job has left me in awe of how deep and complex this ancient text is. It's a book that stays with you, challenges you, and makes you rethink your own beliefs and how you see the world.
It's a book you can read again and again, and each time you'll discover new insights, new layers of meaning, new ways to connect with its timeless wisdom.
So if you haven't already, I encourage you to read the book of Job, wrestle with its questions, embrace its mysteries, and see what truths you find. It's a journey worth taking.
And remember, the book of Job isn't just an old story. It reflects the human experience, our ability to suffer and to be resilient. It speaks to our deepest desires, the search for meaning, the longing for justice, the hope for something more than ourselves.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the book of Job. We hope it's made you curious and inspired you to keep searching for deeper understanding. Until next time, keep diving deep.
Absolutely. Keep exploring.
And remember,
there's always more to learn.
And more to discover.
Exactly. And all this leads up to like the biggest moment in the whole book. You know, when God finally shows up.
Yeah, it's not just a casual, hey, Job.
No, he comes out of a whirlwind.
Talk about making an entrance.
It's such a powerful image, right? It shows God's incredible power and also how mysterious he is. Like that whirlwind, it's this force we can't control, something that can completely upend our lives.
Yeah, it's like the chaos that Job has been dealing with, but on a cosmic scale.
Exactly. And then God's speeches themselves, they're full of amazing imagery and hard-hitting questions. He talks about all of creation, asking Job to explain the earth and the stars and how animals behave.
It's like in Job 38:7, where God asks, "Where were you when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy?"
It gives me chills every time I read it.
Yeah. It's a reminder that we're just tiny humans trying to understand this vast universe.
Right. God isn't giving Job or us a simple explanation for suffering. He's challenging our limited ideas about justice and how he works in the world.
So how does Job react to this divine encounter? What does he say after God speaks from the whirlwind?
Well, Job is humbled. He realizes how small his perspective is compared to God's infinite wisdom.
Yeah, he kind of has to after that display of power.
Right. In Job 42:56, he says, "My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes."
Wow, that's powerful. It's like he's finally seeing God for who he really is and realizing how much he doesn't know.
It's a moment of surrender. He's accepting his limitations and choosing to trust God, even though he still doesn't have all the answers.
And that's what faith is all about, isn't it? It's not about having perfect knowledge. It's about trusting even when things are confusing and uncertain.
Absolutely. And what's really fascinating is that even though Job repents, he never gets a direct explanation for his suffering. God never says, "Okay, Job, here's why I allowed all of that to happen to you."
It's true. There's no neat and tidy answer.
And that's what makes the book of Job so challenging and so relevant. It doesn't tie everything up in a bow. It leaves us with these big questions about suffering and justice and the mystery of God's ways.
The same questions that humans have been wrestling with for centuries.
Exactly. It's like the book is saying, keep searching, keep questioning, keep wrestling with these ideas.
And even though there's no easy explanation, the story doesn't end on a totally bleak note. Job's fortunes are restored. He gets a new family and twice as much wealth as he had before.
But it's not just a return to normal. Job has been changed by his experience.
He's like a totally different person, right?
Right. He's gone through this incredible ordeal and come out stronger. He has a deeper understanding of God, a greater appreciation for life, and a new sense of humility.
It's almost like he's been purified by fire.
Yeah. The book of Job isn't just about suffering. It's about resilience, about our ability to endure hardship, to question our beliefs, and to come out of trials with a deeper understanding of ourselves and our place in the world.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest times, there's still hope. There's still room for growth. And there's still God, even though his ways might seem mysterious.
He's still good. And as we continue exploring, we'll see how this ancient text connects with our lives today. How these themes of suffering, justice, and faith are just as relevant now as they were thousands of years ago. As we wrap up this deep dive into Job, it really hits you how much wisdom is packed into this ancient book.
It's not just a story, right? It's like poetry, philosophy, and deep theology all rolls into one.
Yeah, it's considered a literary masterpiece for a reason. The language is so vivid and powerful.
I love how it uses all these metaphors and images, and it really pulls you into Job's world, and you feel his struggle.
It's like you're right there with him going through it all.
And the way the book is structured, with these back and forth dialogues between Job and his friends, it's like a tennis match of ideas.
Exactly. Each person responds to what the other has said. It creates this complex web of different perspectives on suffering and faith.
And in the middle of it all is this really big question. What is true faith?
Is it just blindly obeying, accepting everything that happens, good or bad?
Or is it something deeper? Something that allows for doubt and questioning and wrestling with those huge questions about life and existence.
Yeah. The book of Job doesn't like the easy answers. It suggests that real faith means wrestling with those tough questions, confronting the mystery, even challenging God.
It's not about being passive. It's about actively searching and struggling. Even when Job is in so much pain, he never stops looking for truth. He keeps asking those hard questions, even when they lead him to some dark places.
And that's what makes this book so relevant for us today. We live in a world where there's so much suffering, and we're constantly trying to find answers and meaning and some kind of hope in the darkness.
Absolutely. The book of Job doesn't sugarcoat the reality of pain. It doesn't offer these quick and easy solutions. But it does show us how strong the human spirit can be, and how powerful faith can be, even when it's been shaken to its core.
It's a reminder that faith isn't about knowing everything. It's about trusting in something bigger than ourselves, even when we don't understand. and holding on to hope even when everything feels hopeless.
And it's about having the courage to ask those tough questions, to question what we believe about God, about justice, about good and evil. Job never stops searching, and through that search, he finds a deeper and more authentic faith.
And the book doesn't end with all the answers tied up in a neat little bow. It leaves us with some unanswered questions, and that's okay.
It's like an open invitation to keep thinking and exploring these ideas.
Right.
It encourages us to keep the conversation going.
Right. It's not about finding all the answers. It's about the journey.
I'm just amazed by the depth and complexity of this ancient text. It really stays with you. It makes you think and challenges you to re-examine your own beliefs about the world.
It's a book you can come back to again and again. Each time you read it, you discover something new.
It's like peeling back layers of an onion.
And each layer reveals something deeper and more profound.
So if you haven't already, I highly recommend diving into the book of Job. Don't be afraid to wrestle with those big questions. Embrace the mystery and see what truths you uncover.
It's a journey worth taking.
And remember, the book of Job is more than just an old story. It's a reflection of what it means to be human, to experience both suffering and resilience, to search for meaning and justice, and to hope for something beyond ourselves.
It speaks to the deepest parts of who we are.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the book of Job. We hope you found it insightful and maybe even a little bit challenging.
We hope it inspires you to keep searching for deeper understanding.
Until next time, keep diving deep.